What XML consists of, it's basically tags and then the text inside the tags. And the way you interpret them is the tag is the variable and the content is the value, right? Very, very straightforward. So you've got a title and the string represents the value of the title. So it's you can think of it as structured data. You can think of these tags as representing fields in a database, and that's one way to view XML. You can also think of them as annotations. Right? So really what you have is you don't have variables and their values, you have just a blob of text, but various portions of that blob are annotated with different tags. So for example, all of the blue stuff, think of it as one long piece of text, and then portions of that text are tagged with certain information. So we know that this portion is tagged with the title. And that makes a lot more sense when you have named entity tagging or various kinds of NLP recognizers run over the text. But in all cases, you've got what the tags help you do is they help you figure out what the text means. They put semantics on chunks of text, and that obviously helps you figure out what is what. XML parsers are widely available in just about every language, so it seems like it should be really straightforward to work with XML, and unfortunately that's not always the case. So the first problem that you'll bump against is the variance of semantics across different sources. So for example, if you're dealing with feeds, we talked about blogs on Twitter and the like, they will use slightly different tags to denote the same thing. So for example, in blogs you will have the pub date tag, Twitter uses published and updated, and news aggregators could use something like that, publication time and receive time. You as a human looking at them, you realize that they're the same thing. The dates are structured a little bit differently, but that's not a problem for normal date parsers. But you have to figure out, you have to put some effort into determining what tags you want to extract, and that will differ from one domain to another because every domain is going to use slightly different tags. So of course it is problematic, and people have tried to come up with standards that mandate what kind of tag you should use for what kind of thing. So about a decade ago, the various companies that deal in news, they came together and they formed, they created a standard called NewsML. So it's a variant of XML whose whole purpose in life was to make sure that stuff like this doesn't happen. That everybody uses the same exact format when they talk about dates and the same exact format when they talk about titles. It's a great thing to have standards, except nobody has the foresight to create a standard that will suit every single news agency. So what you get in the end is you get things like that, right? So this particular news aggregator wants to embed geographic codes into its content, and NewsML does not have a standard tag for geographic codes. So they cannot invent their own tag for geocodes. So what they do is they take this generic tag, vendor data, and then inside it, they put strings like that. And just look at that. I mean, this flies. This will royally mess up your XML parser, because your XML parser will think that this is the variable and this blue stuff is the value of that variable. And in fact, that's false. The real variable is geocode, and the value is Huntington Beach, right? But NewsML, the standard, doesn't provide a standard tag for geocodes. So these guys said, well, we have geocodes, what are we going to do with them? We don't have a tag for them, so we're just going to embed it in a generic vendor tag. So now, why am I stressing over this? It basically means that if you are trying to extract certain data out of text, one way or another, you're going to be writing a separate parser for each source of data. And that's not a big deal when you're dealing with feeds, because the number of feeds that you deal with is relatively small, right? You might have a couple of dozen different feeds, so you have a couple dozen different parsers, no big deal.